Welcome to Hello Grow.
The number one growth podcast in the world. Today's guest, I'm very excited about. I'm gonna read his description because it's pretty long, and also this man has accomplished a lot. So, with over 9 years of experience in sales and sales management, Aaron is currently the co-founder and CEO of Alysio, a software company that helps sales teams optimize their performance and efficiency via AI. Aaron has a proven record of leading and growing sales teams in various markets, such as enterprise, corporate, and international. He has also successfully sold and managed accounts for some of the leading software companies in the industry, such as Lacework, Okta, and Qualtrics. He began his career at Goldman Sachs in the asset management division, and Aaron also attended Brigham Young University. Go Cougars! Thanks for coming, man.
Yeah,
we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
There's a question that I love asking. I think I've asked almost all of the guests we had on the podcast, which is about their wife. You have a beautiful family. You're a father, husband.
Thank you.
And I like to ask about the role their wives have played in their success. But I know your parents, so I want to start there. I want to go a little far back. What role? And I actually read this yesterday. Was talking about having a strong foundation, a strong base allows you to jump higher. And that applies to sports. If you think about it, if you jump from a sandbox, if you jump from versus jumping from concrete, you can jump higher from concrete because it's a stronger base. I want to ask about your base. How has your base, your upbringing, and the values you were taught at home, what role has that played in your success?
Yeah.
And you're obviously very successful.
Well, thank you. I come from a great family. My dad was with the same company for a long time, but he was actually, I don't know if you know this, he was an entrepreneur back in the day. Actually started his own company, which took us to Australia the first time. I think, growing up in a house, example of hard work from day one. Dad wasn't always around, but he always provided, and we had fantastic opportunities from that. And then on the wife front, got a wife, 2 kids. Fortunate, she comes from a family where both her parents were also owned and run a number of businesses. So I think that hopefully prepared her for what this entails. She's been a supporter since day one. She's traveled around the world with me for my opportunities, always trusted in those decisions. Most of them have been good, but for her to jump in on this, no questions asked, makes it a lot easier.
Can you tell us about a couple of those things that she did, like moving with you, and she jumped on the boat with you, that you look back and you're like, wow, why did she do that?
Yeah. I think the very first one, we got married right out of college and had nothing to our name. And she trusted the process. I think we had like 57 cents in our bank account, and we were living in government-funded apartment building here in Murray. First job was Goldman Sachs. I didn't have a finance background. She trusted me that I could go and do that job, supported me there. Second job was Qualtrics in Australia. And so it was one of those where, she didn't have a massive say in it. It was kind of like, this is the right opportunity. I feel like it's the time to go. And she was just on board from day one. So followed me out to Australia. We were only there for 10 months. I had to come back for my green card. She came back with me. And then, we moved to Orange County with Okta. Moved out there. And then actually purchased our home here while I was at the gym and didn't tell her about it. So she didn't actually know that I had bought a house in Utah. And so, came home, said I put an offer in on the house. We're moving back to Utah. And she followed me again. So, it's a good partnership. She's got the same kind of spirit. She sold dresses in high school and ran that business and made an income on the side doing that. She's blogged. She's still doing that, working with a number of great companies. And so I think she understands kind of my mindset with a lot of this, and never questioned it, at least not to my face. So she supports me.
That's amazing.
I want to jump into Alysio. You've done a ton up to this point, and this may monopolize the conversation, but I'm so intrigued by early stage startup. I think it's so difficult to even get to the checkpoint that you're at. And from our lunch conversation, the end game is ringing that bell when you guys go public.
Yeah.
And the checkpoints that you've hit are obviously extremely crucial and critical to being on that path. So maybe we'll just start off with how did you get the balls to go and start this? Like you've been in high tech sales, which is extremely lucrative, and then to go start your own thing is a different type of DNA. Talk to us about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Not an easy decision, truthfully. And, if anyone ever comes to me and says, hey, I have this idea, I want to go start a company, I always tell them, like, are you sure? Like, take a long, hard look in the mirror. Because if it's not keeping you up at night and you don't feel like that was your calling and purpose and reason, literally, like reason in life for doing this, I wouldn't do it. Like, it takes that much of a toll on your family, on your mental health. It's just one of those, like, this has to be it. And so, yeah, I was having a great career in sales. Things were going kind of exactly the plan that I had in my mind. And then, I think I kind of put it down to my co-founder, Ryan. So we worked at Goldman back in the day, sat next to each other, 80 hours a week. Probably knew him better than my wife for the first year of my marriage. And we've always kept in touch. He came out and visited when we were in Australia. And, it was one of those where we would always have ideas. We were going to do, and steal these if you want, but we were going to do a high-end water bottle company where it was like almost like high-end purses. Like it was a status thing to have that water bottle, invite only. Thought that was a good idea. Never did it. We were going to gamify stock picks and almost have like leaderboards and competitions around stock picking. And then I distinctly remember, and I still have the text, we'd run kind of the concept of Alysio at Qualtrics in a spreadsheet, which is always a good indicator that there's potential for business when something's in a spreadsheet. And so I text Ryan this idea and this concept, and at the bottom of that text, I said, this is the one. Like, I have no doubt that this will work. Like, are you in? And he was. Obviously, the easiest way to jump into it is someone giving you a check, which we were fortunate enough to have. So I still had a full-time job, even though we'd built, kind of MVP on the side and Figma files of what we wanted to do. That jump came, I had a call with Village Global, well-respected pre-seed investor, and they said they were in, but I hadn't quit my job. She's like, I'm not going to do it, unless you're all in. That's normally like a prerequisite, is that you're already doing this full time and kind of starving to do it. So I said, okay, I quit. Like, I'll call right now. Again, didn't tell my wife. Got off that phone call, called my boss, and quit. And then
she must really love you.
She loves me. She puts up with me. And then, yeah, that was the conversation. It was, hey, I've quit. And I think I had to do it that way. Otherwise, I might have been talked out of it. I might have second-guessed it. Even Ryan at the time, he hadn't quit. He had a great job. But for me personally, I was like, I have to just rip the Band-Aid off right now, or you'll second-guess yourself. So maybe a little bit easier when there's a check in front of you and that opportunity's there. But yeah, it's still probably one of the hardest decisions to make up to this point.
So when they said that they wanted to write that check for you, you had an MVP. Did you have a customer at the time?
No, when I say, we not even an MVP. It was Figma files that we could click around, and that was it. Yeah, I don't even think we had a deck.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Why do you think they didn't? Was it your track record? The idea was amazing. Why do you think they didn't?
Yeah. So we kind of little backstory. So we had the idea. Always thought it would be better to go and present to investors, see if they were interested. Is there any legs to this? Met a lady called Kat Kennedy, who to this day I think we owe pretty much everything to. She hadn't even joined Kickstart yet at the time. Went on a hike. She's like, hey, I can't do anything yet. I'm not writing a check yet, but go talk to Mike Leventhal. And so if you're not familiar with Mike, you know, he feels like a granddad to me at this point. Talk to him almost every single week, but he's, you know, incredible career in VC, moved to Park City, and she said, go talk to Mike. If he's in, like, then we're in. Kind of one of those pieces. So talked to Mike, and from the first call, he said he was in. And I think he writes like 2 or 3 angel checks a year. And so, you know, he then opened the door to Village Global. He said, hey, I have a friend who this might resonate with. Happened to be the CEO of Splunk. And those 3 came in at the same time.
And do you credit that to the idea that you guys had?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you talk to these, you know, angels and early stage investors, every entrepreneur thinks they've got the next best thing, right? You wouldn't do it if you didn't. But I think primarily they're investing in the founding team and the idea, and kind of, you know, are these the right people to go and do it? And, you know, I think that's kind of what made this different is the water bottles. It's just a good idea, right? I still think it's a good idea. But I'm not an expert in that field. That's not where I came from. I'd done 1 year at Goldman, not an expert in picking stocks. So, I think it would have been an uphill battle. But this concept was, okay, let's write out the 3 things that in my career I've done in a spreadsheet or a Google Doc, and let's go make it a product. And so I think from, 9 years of living with that pain, seeing it firsthand, essentially it was like a 9-year trial run of like, this will work. We did it in a spreadsheet format for 2 years. The reps that use that spreadsheet, they hit quota. They were going to President's Club. And so when I took that, went to Okta, started using it again for myself, I'm like, okay, if I've used this at Qualtrics, now I've used it at Okta, 2 great sales teams, this problem has to exist for other teams. And so, made a ton of phone calls, asked what people were doing, to track productivity and whatnot, and the default response was spreadsheet. So that was kind of it. That was like the light bulb moment for us where it's like, okay, this is going to work. So I think us having lived it and it being a pain, to that point, like, kept me up at night. Like, these are the hardest parts of my day. These are the things that need to change. I think that gave us kind of that belief that the concept would work.
You brought up a really good point that you just had to make the decision. And I think the decisions in my life that I've made, the ones that I knew were the right decision, I just went and made it. The ones that were the wrong decision, I had to get validation. And then if I would make that decision, it would end up being the wrong decision.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, if you think about a startup from the aspect of proven assumptions to graduate from startup to a scaling up business, where are you guys in that process? And then what is your methodology for running these science projects?
Yeah, I mean, it's still early days for us. I think one of those moments where I think we felt like it would work, we were fortunate. Our third customer, kind of beta customer, was MongoDB. And so we started running it with 2 teams at MongoDB. We just opened up our 8th team. We're in Australia, we're in Israel with MongoDB. And so I think, I just look at it like a drawing board of measure twice, cut once on all those decisions. We're early stage. We're just figuring out kind of where, we're going. We have that vision of what we want to go and achieve. And it's coming back every day and saying, okay, are we still going in the right direction? What do we need to do to get to the next level? And I know I mentioned it too, but, 2 pretty quick funding rounds, maybe, a 3rd one here soon. And that just continually every day is like a push and an accelerant for ideas and execution. And so, I would say we just read Crossing the Chasm as a team. I don't know if we're in a specific point right now. I know VCs like to say product market fit. Are we there yet? I always like to live with the concept of no, we don't have that. Like, let's continue to prove out what we're doing every day. With every customer that we add, we learn more. We feel like we progress the product. We are like customer focused with every decision. We try and run it past those that are already in the platform. What do you need? What can we build? How can we make it better? And so I think that is kind of like that main piece that drives the decision-making process. But kind of on a scale, I'd say, yeah, we're still near the beginning.
What's your key metric and what is your definition of product market fit? Because I feel like that's so nuanced, and I don't feel like it took us like 5 years. I feel like before, like, oh, here's where Aspen plays as a company, and like here's our product market fit. We do have something. Here's this category that we created. So tell us how you think about that.
Yeah, I think, that like naivety, again, being a co-founder, you want to get to that point quickly. I've heard our VCs say to other VCs, these guys have product market fit. I don't live with that assumption. We've repeated the sales motion. We feel like we have that nailed down. We know the conversations that work. We know the pain points we're trying to solve for. We've seen the value come to the customers, which we can then replicate. I think one of the things that I always, like a mindset I try and live with is, as a startup founder, every single day, you're one day closer to dying, right? And like, that's not something you ever have to live with as an employee. It's like, yeah, you might lose your job, go get another one, fine. But every day that we go to work is one day with one less dollar. We're closer to the competition being one step further ahead. And so that's just kind of been our mindset from day one, is like, every day we're dying, got to be ahead of the curve. How do we move faster? How do we be better? And so, I just think from like day one, we've tried to think bigger than we are, appear bigger than we are, move faster than we probably should, but trying to be as calculated in doing that. And so, I don't know if there's like a moment in time where you just get like a check mark of like product market fit. Here we are. I think that's going to change. And, you guys have seen the story of like Drift recently, right? Acquisition. They were flying. They were doing everything right. They had their space defined. They were the kings of SMB. And then overnight, like, oh, we're going to go do enterprise. And now they've just been acquired. And it's like, and not end of the story, but, you got to always be looking over your shoulder. And, I think what's nice about having Ryan as a co-founder is I feel like a racehorse. Like, the blinders are on and we just run. Like, every day you run as fast as you can go. And all the time, like, Ryan, what am I not seeing? Right? Like, I always used to do this in my deals when I was selling. I thought I had everything figured out. I'd filled out Medic, thought the deal was going to close. And it's like, hey, Mr. Manager, Mrs. Manager, what am I missing? What am I not seeing? What's in the blind spots that I'm not aware of? Tell me, help me, and let's go and fix it. And so I think trying to get to product market fit or being at it, like, that should still always be the mindset. It's like, is it time to go and open up a new vertical? Are we ready? Can we sustain those customers? Do we lose focus on our previous customers? You just have to be kind of disciplined in that. So, I
want to ask you some questions about Ryan as a co-founder, but before that, you said every day, which I love this concept, every day we're one day closer to dying. How do you couple that with keeping it abundance and we're also one day closer to ringing the bell mentality? Where's the equilibrium there?
Yeah, I think, so what's funny, so that first check that we got was $250K. It's not a lot of money, but it was enough to get us started. We had that money. We planned on it going a few months and then going doing a pre-seed. And March rolled around and SVB collapsed. And it was just like shudders. Like, that was it. It was like no one wanted to talk to us. Even people we were in good conversations with. It's like, hey, we can't talk for 2 months. We're saving up port cars. So we made $250K stretch from October of 22 to June of 23. And we got to within 1 week of payroll. 1 week. And then the round closed and we paid the next payroll. And I think that's kind of always been the mindset that we've lived with. Like, we weren't born in a time of abundance. We didn't get funded in 2021. Every dollar to us is sacred. And so, every decision we make is like, we're getting closer to dying every day because the money is going to run out if we don't do something right. So I always try and carry that anxiety. Like, that's not for anyone else. That's for me. Knowing that I have people's livelihoods that I'm responsible for. I've met every single one of our employees' families, and that's your burden as a founder, right? Like, that's what you carry to everybody else, and externally, it's like, we're one day closer to ringing the bell. it's positive, right? It's like always relay the positive. Even with the fundraising, like, we're going through something right now, and we keep that in. Like, let us carry that burden. Let us carry that stress. If things go well, we'll tell you. If things go poorly, it's like, you don't need to carry that. Like, allow your employees to do their job and their role and execute without any clouds hanging over their heads. So we always try and keep it positive, obviously. But I think everyone that's in the boat with us knows it's a startup. Like, Tom, our head of product, was there one of the days around SVB time where we were in panic mode. Thought the writing was on the wall. This cash is going to run out. What are we going to do? And like, we just sat on the floor, and it was raining, and it was probably like the darkest day I think I've ever had. We just got a no from a VC that we're pretty hot on. And I was like, all right, this is it. Everyone that's in this boat can either feel this way every day that we do, or we just kind of put that shield up and continue to have the positivity. And so, yeah, I think that's kind of what we have to project as founders. The positive, the direction we're running in, keep everyone aligned, and some things you just have to harbor in.
You've spoken pretty positively about Ryan.
Yeah.
Tell us what makes him a great co-founder.
Yeah. People, when I said we were going to start Alysio, 8-9 years in B2B SaaS, I've come across thousands of people I could have started this with who knew the space better. Could have gone and found a technical co-founder who could have built the product. But I knew if this was going to win, like, he was the guy. Like, there's not a doubt in my mind. It's one of those, like, if my kids died tomorrow, I hope he'd take my kids. Just a genuine, good person. We've always put the business first in every decision we made. And he's just that side of the brain that I don't have. Like, I have the sales, kind of the vision piece, and then he just does the things that I'm not good at. And kind of feel like that's where the marriage piece comes in, or try and find someone that complements you. And so, for the first year or so, every VC discussion we did, it was the two of us. It's like, we are doing this together. We are co-founders. And I think to this day, in 9 years, like, we've never had an argument. Whether that's good or bad, we've never had a fight. We've had things where we disagree, to fro. But like, we always come out with the same, like, belief in the decision that we made. I don't know how. Maybe he just gives in to me. I don't know. But it's one of those where it's like, I'll circulate something. He finds a way to challenge it, refine it, massage it, and then we go and do it. And the same way too. Like, he'll come to me with concepts, ideas, thoughts, and yeah, I might not agree, but we always somehow get to the same resolution. So, yeah, it's just one of those where you sit back and you're like, this would not work.
So your 1 + 1 equals what?
A lot.
Yeah, a lot more than two.
A lot more than two. Yeah,
That's incredible. You talking about Ryan made me also think, and I think I've mentioned this to you. There's two things that fascinate me about the business they're building. Well, the product, of course, but I think you have an amazing team. Like, when I look at your leadership team, you got it right. Like, this is an amazing group. How do you go about? How did you pick those people?
Yeah, again, when I said, like, we owe a lot to Kat, when we were starting this, again, me and Ryan aren't technical co-founders. Had a vision, had an idea, had a concept, had a Figma file, but we needed someone to go and execute on it. And so that was Kat's recommendation. She didn't even say, go get a CTO. She's like, go get a head of product, which is maybe not super conventional, but she's like, I know the guy, go meet with him. We had one meeting, and Mike Leventhal walked into the restaurant, and he's like, hey, so we're doing this? He's like, yeah, all right. The guy had been at a job for 5 years, same company. He's like, yeah, I'm in. And it was just one of those, like, that's all it took. We're just like, all right, he's in, he's ready to jump. We trust Kat. She recommended him. And then he started working for us for like 3 months on the side before January 1st. And so for us, that's kind of all we needed to see at that point. And then he brought Zach over, who now runs development for us. And I met Zach for one meeting, but I trusted Tom. So when Tom's like, this is the guy we need, he fits the profile. Yeah, it's not my place to say he's wrong. It's like I trust Tom to go and get the guy that he needs to do his job, and we enabled him to do it. We like Zach, he's been with us. So yeah, and I think the riskiest one that we've done, we got Justin. So from day one, I'm like an Apple fanboy. I don't wear an Apple Watch, but I'm an Apple fanboy, but not products necessarily. But like I grew up admiring Steve Jobs, not as a person, but as a leader and the way he could see things beyond the way that normal people saw things. Yeah. And so when we started Alysio, it's not normal for your third hire to be a marketer, right? And so
I just realized you're wearing jeans and a black
That's
sweater.
it. There may be something
That's
to
the
it.
man.
It's not a polo yet, but
He's in a tuxedo,
yeah, I need to get a turtleneck on. And so I went to Ryan. I was like, hey, we need to hire a marketer. I was like, our strategy, where we're going, we need to be bigger than we are. We need to move faster than we are. I think we should go and make a hire for a VP of marketing. Wasn't met by everybody with the same kind of confidence, but like I just kind of knew that was the next role that we needed. And so we met Justin again, one lunch. I was like, this is the guy. So I think you may have mentioned it earlier, like that gut instinct. I trust that a lot, maybe more than most people, but to this point, I don't feel like it's ever kind of led me astray. And so kind of got a sense that, Justin's the guy. And he's just a bulldog. Like he came in from day one and grabbed the bull by the horns. Yesterday we sat there and I was like, Ryan, I'm going to go do some cold calls. Ryan's in. Next thing I know, Justin's making cold calls. Our VP of marketing is making cold calls with us in a room. And that's not normal, but like at this stage, that's what we needed. And incredible hire. Very lucky, very fortunate. But I think, even as we go, we just hired our first AE, came recommended. I normally don't like to do reference checks or background checks. Again, like let the gut speak a little bit. So we extended the invite, asked him to come on board. And like that night, he sent me 2 text messages of draft emails based on what he thinks Alysio does, gave me a name and an email of someone to reach out to. Like they haven't started. They don't start for a couple of weeks. And it's like, that's what we need. Those are the type of people we need to hire. So fortunate. Again, a good friend of mine just said, you will think you're right 100% of the time when you hire. You'll be wrong 30% of the time. He's like, but just make sure you act quick when that 30% is wrong. Unfortunately, no 30% yet. So it will come. But to this point, couldn't ask for a better team.
I'm curious about the wiring of an entrepreneur who decides to go to the seed, VC, IPO route, because I think people think entrepreneur and they think, I'm going to go start this company, I'm going to go buy a building, I have this idea. The amount, for sure, that takes guts and there's pressure there, right? Especially if you're bootstrapping. Yeah. I'm curious if you can explain some of the pressures that are specific to somebody that's playing the game that you're playing, and also the wiring of somebody in that space that makes them poised to win.
Yeah, I think I like this concept of freedom, right? Like as an entrepreneur, you want to be free. That's why you do it, right? I don't want to work for someone else. I want to be free. I want to, run this thing the way that I think makes sense. And then you go and take VC money. And now you got a boss. And then you get your first customer and now you work for them. So that concept of freedom like goes away pretty quick. But I think on the flip side of that is like personally, the goals and the visions that we have for the company, like I don't think we would get there without the funding. And I think it's different business. It works for some people. It doesn't work for others. Sure, if we could have bootstrapped this and had the success that we had, great, you own the company, fantastic, that's the goal. But I think in this environment with the advancements of technology, how fast people can move these days, for us, we just felt from day one, like this is the route we need to go. I was at Qualtrics, I think I joined when they were year 8 or 9 or something, and like they bootstrapped for so long. But Then SurveyMonkey came, Medallia was there, like all this competition was there, and somehow they came out the other side. I don't think if you started Qualtrics today, you would bootstrap it, right? Like it's just nigh impossible. So I think for that kind of accelerated growth that we want to achieve, it was kind of like that's the option. The other thing too, and you know, this has been pretty transparent, it's like this is our first go. Like obviously IPO is the goal. That's what we work to every day. That's where I believe we will go to. But if it doesn't work, I've now expanded my network tenfold by having those VCs on board. Like the people that I've met because of those relationships, the things I learned from Mike Leventhal every week, and Dwayne at Village, Cat, you know, at Kickstart, like these people were just a different caliber. And most of them have done it before. And so, you know, I think for me, it feels like I'm getting an MBA every day, learning things I didn't know before. And you kind of have to be humble enough to say, okay, let's be a sponge. Let's learn everything we can, and take that on board. That you just wouldn't get that if it was just me and Ryan going at it alone in our little office in the kiln. And even to that point, you know, like we had Jerome Paul present the other week, and this is his fourth startup. Like Spiff was number 4. And so, you know, hopefully Alysio's number 1. Yeah, we want to go to the bell. Great. Go do it again, right? Like same mindset that you have. It's like, you don't want to take a break. You just want to go do it again. So for me, probably selfishly, it's like, hey, I get to learn from some of the most incredible people. Their networks have led me to some of the most, incredible people that I've had the chance to be around. Whereas, you know, 9-year career in sales, met some really good people, but it's just very different. And so I think, that's kind of been like an added bonus from going the VC route that I didn't necessarily think would pay off in the way that it has.
If you have a micro SaaS solopreneur, and then they're like, I want to play bigger, I want to go faster, what would you recommend is the first step for them to meet the right people and be in the right ecosystem to get on the track you're on?
Yeah. Again, my sales hat just came on straight away. It's like outreach. Like, if you don't ask, you don't get. And I've never been afraid of asking in my life. I always try and reciprocate that. You know, it's deposits and withdrawals, and hopefully you're making more deposits than withdrawals. Like, go talk to people. Go ask some questions. If you're a micro founder, you're running alone, and you want to know how the big players are doing it, like, go ask them. And if any of them say, no, I don't have 30 minutes to help a fellow founder, you're not talking to the right person, right? Like, I could have a college kid come up to me and ask for 30 minutes. Like, I'm going to do it because someone's done it for me. Go put your sales hat on, knock some doors, make some calls, send some emails, try and get in front of the right people. You have to kind of be afraid. And again, I think that like humility to say, I don't know what I don't know. Teach me, please. Not the easiest thing in the world to do, but I don't know how else to get ahead.
I love that. Court and I were just talking about that 2 days ago, that we live in a society today that people are afraid of rejection. And I feel like for myself, the biggest opportunities and jumps that I've had, and I'm young, but the biggest jumps I've made, I asked for them. And it also adds an extra level of responsibility when you ask for something as well, for an opportunity or for a time, because then you gotta deliver, right? You gotta come through. You talked about that you feel like it's an MBA almost every day, like you're learning so much. From your transition to being a regional sales manager, working at a corporate job, to being an entrepreneur and CEO, what was the biggest thing that you've had to learn? Like, what's been the biggest thing you've learned?
I look at my life and kind of the journey that I've had, and I'm very fortunate. Like, I look back on things that have happened, and I did a communications degree. Why? Because it was the second shortest degree at BYU. Walk out, go get a job at Goldman, right? And I'm looking at all these kids that did accounting degrees or finance degrees that wanted a job at Goldman and they didn't get it. I got that job because I was the first resume that the VP at Goldman had seen in 27 years with a communications degree. Right? Like, stood out. It was different. And it was easy. Like, it was like 6 interviews at Goldman, and by the second one, I texted my dad. I was like, I think I got the job. Like, it just kind of fell in. And then it's like, oh, I think I want to do sales. Got a job at Qualtrics as an AE2. I'd never been an SDR. Like, things in my life have always just been, like, it comes together. Not easily. Obviously, you got to work for it and put in the effort, but it's kind of one of those, like, I manifest things. I believe that things are going to happen. I visualize it, and it happens. Like, it just comes to pass. And so with this, it's the amount of times that you get a no from a VC. It's the amount of times that you get a no from a customer, a potential customer. I don't think I've ever been punched in the face so many times, right? Where it's like, it's going to happen, it's going to happen, it's going to work, it's going to work. And you just have to learn to live with the fact that, like, in this arena, like, nothing goes as planned, right? Like, you have to be comfortable with rejection. You have to be comfortable with failure. You know, I think that's maybe like a superpower. I don't know, where it's just like that concept of failure. Just like, I haven't lived with it. And so I tried not to live with it today. It's like, people might think I'm nuts, but it's like, no, it's going to work. Like, I believe it. It's just going to work. So.
We're laughing at each other because 2 weeks ago we had Cole McWhorter sitting in that seat, and he said, man, I just think grit is like a superpower. Like, identical to what you just said.
Yeah, you just got to keep running through the doors, right? Like, just take the punches on the chin, figure it out. But like, that belief, like, I go to bed every night. It's like, this will work. This will work. No matter what, we'll figure out a way. It will work. And yeah, it's just picking yourself up every time and going again and just believing that it's going to happen.
I think one of the biggest differences between the people that have the lives they want and the people that serve the lives that other people want, and that's kind of harsh, but I honestly think that's true. You can take the bull by the horns and have the life you want or live somebody else's life, is first just thinking bigger and then just doing exactly what you said, just getting up one more time. Like, there are so many people that were in your exact same situation in Brazil, and you figured out how to create this life for you and your wife in the US. Like, so many other people could have had that opportunity, that experience, but you knew what you wanted. You dreamed big, and you went out and accomplished it. You, like, asked the question over and over and over and over again, and lived with the anxiety of, this could potentially be a no, and this could potentially mean that we're living back in this area, or we're gonna have to do this thing, or we don't know what the way looks like, but you find a way and you create a way, especially if you're just unwilling to give up on that goal.
Yeah. A week ago, we had Reed on that seat, and he said that, kind of talking about what Cord just said, that one of the superpowers of an entrepreneur is not believing that he can, but believing that he can do it. Yep. But it's almost that thing. It's not like that confidence. It's not that entrepreneurs are confident. It's that they really believe that they can do it. And it's almost a superpower to be that naive.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you right now, I am yet to meet a founder who doesn't have imposter syndrome. Right? Like, there is always something in the back of your head where you're like, I'm not qualified. I'm not good enough. I'm not the person. But, like, you just kind of shut that out. I was listening to something the other day where, you know, you have this voice in your head, but you're talking to that voice in your head. So is that you, or is that, you know, something else? And if it is, you can shut it off, right? Like, you don't have to talk to yourself that way. You don't have to think that way. And so that's what I always try and do, where it's like, negative thoughts come in every day. You're going to fail. You're going to do this. Like, you have to have that mindset. But I just try and shut it off. It's like, no, like, you'll win. You'll accomplish it. Go and do it. But yeah, the amount of times where you, like, hit the floor, you're like, all right, here we go. Here's the failure. Like, never visioned it, but it's going to happen. And then you just, sun rises the next day. Just go again.
How do you know, how do you separate, and we are talking about this last week as well, and I feel like it's something really hard to define, but stubbornness and grit, because there's a difference. How do you make sure that you're gritty?
Yeah. Yeah, you and I kind of talked about it. You know, my background, like I grew up on punk music, right? Like this like anti-establishment. I was a skateboarder. I used to get dropped off at math tutor class, walk in, walk out, and go skate, and then go back in right before my mum picked me up, right? Didn't learn my times tables for a long time. And I think if you kind of, that mindset of like, figure it out yourself. Not everybody knows the right answer. I think that's just kind of embedded within me, just kind of this concept. We were just talking about it, right? Where it's like, think outside the box, be different, go against the status quo. Like you wouldn't be a founder if you didn't think that way. I think you have to be, a little bit rebellious in that mindset, right? You think about Steve Jobs. It's like took drugs, didn't wear shoes, wanted everyone like he thought differently. And so I think some people, and again, this is just my opinion, take it for what it's worth, but like stubbornness, grit, sure. I think it's almost, for me, it's like resilience more than like I see people that have like this work ethic of a grit, right? Where it's like, I'm going to be first one in, last one out, outwork everybody. It's like, yeah, but are you the best at your job? Or are you just being busy, right? Are you just showing this like facade of grit and stubbornness? And so I think for me, it's almost like, I don't think that thing can be taught to someone, right? I just don't believe that. I don't think you can go and read books on how to learn to navigate this world. Like, I feel like it is within people themselves. But again, you're training that every day. And so I think stubbornness comes with like a lack of self-awareness, right? Like if you're just being stubborn, but without looking at, the influences on that, that's where you fall. That's like where you fail. Grit, I think, is that concept of like, no matter what, I'm going to push through, I'm going to get it done. Like, yep, you got to have that. But then, I think like expanding your mind to be able to say, okay, if something's not right, change, pivot. That's where you avoid the stubbornness. It's like, I can be wrong. I've been wrong plenty of times. Can you be self-aware enough that you're wrong and make the changes to then go and succeed? Yeah.
Love that.
You said I don't think that's something that could be taught. And then you said it's something that's inside of us. And the thought came to my mind that it's something that has to be untaught. You said Steve Jobs did drugs. He didn't wear shoes. You were the skateboard kid. Like you did it your own way. And I think people can be listening to this and think, oh, if I wear the black turtleneck and if I wear the jeans and if I don't wear shoes, and no, I'm going to skip out on math class and I'm going to skateboard. Those things aren't it. Like that's as far off as you can be from it. The people that are being successful have unlearned what society's tried to place, or their parents or whoever it is has tried to place on them, and have become more themselves to such a degree where they can go and create amazing stuff because it's just an expression of who they are inside and not this thing that they learned or keeping the status quo or making people around them happy.
Yeah, no, I think, that's probably one thing that I've always been personally proud of is, my dad, like I'm not him. I respect it. Like he is my hero, but I am not him. Like, I don't think we could be more chalk and cheese. And when I took that job at Goldman, I don't know if I've ever told him this, but so I had a communications degree, went to New York, walked around a few ad agencies, found out what people made at ad agencies, said, I'm not doing that. Came back, Googled highest paying salaries. Goldman Sachs came up. I had never taken a finance class. I didn't even do a math class. My math requisite was statistics. I think I got a C. And then, it was like, okay, I'm going to go get a job at Goldman because that's what you should do to have a high salary. And that's something that I know my dad would be proud of. That's what society says is how you win. You go and work at Goldman or an accounting firm. It's what BYU taught me. And then, I was a couple months in. I'm like, this is not me. Like, this is just not me. I see these other kids go and get their series. I know I can't do that. Like, who am I? What am I good at? And like my whole life, I knew I was good at selling. Like that's just like people just always told me that. And so I was like, okay, I guess that is who I am. I'm going to go and do that. And again, I had to learn to sell, right? I wasn't like, you can be born with techniques and whatnot, but like to master sales took 9 years and I still never mastered it. And so I think kind of looking back on it, it's like, stay true to who you are. And not everyone has to be a founder, right? You don't have to go in entrepreneurship to have success. On the side, I love art. Like, I did art and design in college. I did art and design in high school. Like, that's what I would do, right? Like, if this works out and get to go sail off into the sunset, it's like, yeah, I'm probably just going to be an artist. Like, that's what I enjoy. That's a passion. I probably, looking back on it, if I'd have stuck with it and done that, maybe again, true to who I am, probably could have made money selling art as well, right? Like, there's no right or wrong answer. And so I think, to your point, the misstep comes where people are like, oh, I'm meant to be this. I'm meant to be that. Someone's told me I should do this. Society tells me I should be that. When that's not who they are, that's when you fail. That's when you fail, because it's just against the grain every single day. It doesn't come naturally. It's not how it works. And so, yeah, I think it's one of those, like, look in the mirror. It's like, who are you? Who are you meant to be? What works well for you? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? What does that then equate in you, not what you've always been told you should be?
I listened to Arnold Schwarzenegger's, thank you for sharing that, by the way. It was profound. I was listening to Arnold Schwarzenegger's autobiography that just came out. It was phenomenal. And he reads it himself, and he asked the question, what color are your eyes? And he said, I don't just mean the color, but like, when was the last time that you looked yourself in the mirror and looked into your eyes? And I went and did that night and stared at my eyes for like 2 minutes straight and just asked myself, who in the world am I? And it was a profound experience. And I never, like, you look at yourself in the mirror every single day, but to actually, like, what color are your eyes? I've been trying to incorporate that and shed all the things that I'm not and be more who I am.
Yeah, Court always says this, and I really like it. And, you know, most of us spend the first 10, 15 years, 20 years of our lives trying to fit in. Yeah. And then we spend the last 10, 20 years trying to unlearn that and be more myself. And I feel like the best days that I have in sales are the ones that I'm in tune with who I am and myself. And I'm not saying things that will sound right, that will please somebody else, but I feel like that I'm tuned with who I am. I want to backtrack a little bit, kind of on the same subject, but not. What drew you to sales, though? Is it that you found that was more in tune with who you were and who you are? But what made you move from that, finance job to sales, which largely defined the rest of your life?
Yeah, maybe I looked in the mirror one day, but it was that where it's like, okay, I am never going to be the smartest person at Goldman. I'm never going to be the top performer, and I'm so competitive. Like, I am so competitive. And so I think I just kind of sat there. I was like, okay, which arena do I need to play in so that I will win? And the other thing too is, like, I would go in, we did good work. Like, I had this unbelievable experience. Goldman was launching their first ever ETF. I'm like a peasant analyst in Salt Lake City, and somehow got invited to this group of like 7 people that helped launch the ETF. Like, silly opportunity, but it's still, I was like, this is not me. This is not where I'm going to continue to excel. And so I think I just sat down and said, okay, I could be the hardest working person at Goldman, and I will be an analyst for 3 years, no matter how good I am. And then we'll all graduate and we'll all become associates for 2 years. And no matter how hard I work, I'm not going to be a VP after 3 months. And then I'll be a VP, and maybe I'll be a VP for 25 years, right? Like, that was the path, and it was like already predefined. And so I had a friend who was selling, and I think he said to me, he's like, yeah, if you want to be essentially like an entrepreneur, he's like, you can go do sales. It's like, it's doing it without most of the risk. You have your book, you have your territory, you're responsible for your number, and if you do well, like, the ceiling is high, and you can promote fast, you can make money fast. And so I did. I went in, and like day one of my sales career, again, I'd never been an SDR, so like day one I had a quota, and I was in the Provo office at Qualtrics doing some training. A good friend of mine was there and helping me on those 2 weeks. I was like, okay, I'm going to Australia. Who is the best in Australia? Like, who is the gun out there? And He's like, oh, this guy, Michael Bailey. I was like, all right. So I went out, naive me, go in, and day one, walked up to Michael. I was like, hey, can I sit next to you? He's like, no. I was like, okay, can I at least listen to some of your calls? He's like, all right. And he was like pretty reluctant. So I went in and I sat down on his first call, put my phone on the desk and pressed record. And I videotaped his call. I went home, put my headphones in, and I listened to it. I was like, okay, what does he say? Where are his jokes? Where is like punchlines? Where's the pain, etc.? And then I just try to replicate that over and over and over again. And so for me, I was like, okay, I saw that light like day one from sales. Like, I can promote, I can accelerate this. Came back, and then for like 2 years, I promoted every 6 months. And it was like that carrot was always right there, and I could touch it. And I was like, this is it. This is home. I'm meant to be doing this. And so, yeah, I've never looked back from that. 8-9 years selling, and always just kind of had that same, like, okay, felt like I was home. This is what I was meant to do. And then the luxury of now starting a company, building a sales tool to sell to salespeople, like I'm still home. It just in a very different way.
While you're saying that, it made me ask, there's so many ups and downs in sales. There are hard days, and when you hear those no's, and then there's so much rejection, what has kept you going? And I feel like sales and being an entrepreneur, starting your own thing, probably two of the hardest jobs out there. What's your why? Like, what has kept you going for all these years, and what do you feel like is your purpose as a person?
Yeah, private jet.
I like that. There's
no.
First since you got to be on Ryan, you're like, I need this.
So I think trying to figure out like how vulnerable we get. I think I've always like had this. Yeah, it's like an insecurity of like having to prove myself always, whether it's on the football pitch, soccer pitch, whether it's at school, whether it's, at work. It's like, I think it's that competitive drive of like, a lot of people would look at things I've done and be like, oh, that's good. That's really good. That's great. And then internally to me, it's always like never enough. Always wished I was better. I think one year I was like the third top sales guy. I'm like, I wanted to be number one. And it like kept me up at night. It's like, yeah, you still at President's Club, great. You got like the rewards. But I just have this like drive, like competitive edge. Always try to be like a good person about it, because I've met competitive people that I hate where, that's not who I want to be. But like internally, it's just like this drive. Like I wake up at 5:30 Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday to play soccer. Like that's what I love. That's what I do. That's easy to me. Like I know to a lot of people that's hard, and I've had a lot of people come to football a few times and they're not coming back because they don't want to wake up at 5:30. But I think once you find something that is like a purpose or something you're obsessed with, you love, like the sacrifices, that just falls to the wayside for me. And so, I think, I have, I don't know, like this complex where it's like, I have to prove something. It's not to anybody else. It's to me. And like, I'm just not content being bang average. Like I just never have. And I think, I've always try and find ways to accomplish the goals that are the most efficient, that make sense. Like I took intro to guitar 6 times at BYU. I took public speaking 3 times. I took sign language twice, because you can do 12 credits of any class you want and repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. People don't know that. But we had a guy that came into school. He was teaching at BYU. It was intro to college class. And he said, hey, when you're in college, he's like, don't get straight A's. He's like, if you get straight A's, you're going to be stuck in the library all day. And then you're going to graduate, and you're going to have to go and get your first job. And the only way you get your first job is because you had A's. He's like, go get B's and throw parties and network. And so that's what I did. Like, I got the grades that I needed. I did well. Through parties, was social, and that led to my job at Goldman, right? Like someone I knew from that circle, introed me, put the resume on top of the pile. Great. And so I've always like tried to think, I just don't see like boxes, right? Think outside the box, be different, try and challenge everything. And so I think that's that piece inside me. That's the why. It's like, be different, try and be different, accelerate, don't be content, be happy, but yeah, just never be content.
Thanks for being vulnerable,
Yeah.
and I absolutely love that.
And don't get A's unless that is you.
Yeah, unless that's you. If it's you, great, go for it.
And if
yeah.
it's not, do what you did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, yeah, take it with a grain of salt. But
And Aaron, it's been a pleasure to have you on, man.
Thank you.
And you guys are going to be wildly successful, and I so relate to that feeling of I need to prove this to myself, and hit a checkpoint with Aspen and realized that it did nothing for how I felt about myself, and just had this overwhelming gratitude that you're on, and overwhelming belief that you guys will be wildly successful. So stoked to see your success.
Thank you.
And last question for you is, giving advice to yourself 10 years ago, what would it be?
Yeah. Dang, what's 10 years ago? 25. I don't think I regret the Goldman piece at all, because it was the hardest year of work of my life. I challenged myself every day. It's like I was doing things I never thought I'd be able to do coming out of college. But at the same time, yeah, I think it's just one of those where it's like, I love that this is how this conversation's kind of mainly gone. It's like, be true to who you are. In hopefully 40 odd years, I'm probably going to be in the ground. All the people in this room probably going to be next to me, right? And for what, right? So every day I try and wake up and live it like it's my last. I don't know if you know, I was paralyzed when I was 4, head to toe. Only my eyes worked, only my internal organs were working, and was measured, for a wheelchair. May not have had the chance to run or play soccer. That's why I'm 35 and I still try and play 4 times a week. I just don't take anything for granted. And so I think kind of going back, it's just be true to who you are, because people are going to disappear. You're going to be forgotten, whatnot. You get one chance to live this life. Live it for you. Because I've realized adults don't have it figured out. No one has the answers, right? It's we're all just trying to do our best. And so if you're taking advice from other people about who you should be, they probably don't even know who they are. And so, yeah, I would say maybe skip Goldman, but I wouldn't have met Ryan, so I can't say that. But I would just say, yeah, from day one, maybe going back 15, 20 years, is no matter what, just be true to who you are, trust the process, because it will always work out.
This has been one of the deepest podcasts we've had, and appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming.
Of course.
I'm super curious on what's your single most important metric as a SaaS company, and on the antithesis of that, what's the biggest vanity metric that sinks early stage SaaS companies?
Yeah.
Great question.
My biggest metric, for me, again, probably coming from the sales background, it's revenue targets. And I had a chat today with potential VC, and you get these benchmarks when you fundraise of get to this point you can do this series, you get to this point you can do that one. And so we have this model built out for where we want to be at the Series A, and the conversation had gone so well. And he's like, okay, and where does this money get you to? And I gave him the number, and that's a stretched number for what Series A's are going for. And he's like, I don't think this is going to work. I said, what do you mean? He's like, I don't want you to be there. I want you to be here. And incredible guy. I'd known him for 20 minutes. He's like, okay, next week, you and me, 30 minutes. I'll show you how we can get there. We'll have a 30-minute break, and then let's go and do it again. Didn't know him before today. And so I think for me, that metric, the most important one is revenue targets. That's what I'm responsible for. If we miss, it's on me. And that's what we need to go and achieve. And I just know if we go and do that, like we've done, hit those targets, this train will continue. Biggest vanity metric? That's a good question.
While you're thinking of vanity metric, is there a pre-revenue targets, is there a user target when you're proving concept? I'm guessing you didn't come out of the gate with most important metric is revenue when you first got that check when you were working at Qualtrics, or was that the case? It was revenue from day one.
I feel like, yeah, times changed from a couple years ago where like that is just a non-negotiable now. I think we were fortunate that we didn't have, you know, maybe a revenue target for pre-seed, but our customers were like a pretty strong caliber.
Number of users.
Yeah, and yeah, maybe not like, yeah, number of users, but like who were already customers at this point where it's like, okay, if they trust you, there's something here. And it was kind of like that overnight validation. Yeah, I think that was like our biggest win to date was having MongoDB be a customer early. Like it's just like the dominoes fell. I would say on the on the flip side of that, like if you're not being pushed from a revenue standpoint, yeah, I would say making sure your caliber of customers is high, early adoption. You know, one of the things that I probably wish we'd have done looking back on it is, hey, we have this concept. How many letters of intent can we get before we go and build it, etc. And that's a learning point for me. If I'm ever going to do it again, that's what I would do, is like test the concept, see how many people will give you a credit card with no product. And so, yeah, I always encourage founders to do that come to me with ideas and pitch decks and whatnot. It's like, can you sell it before you built it? And that's a Tyler Hogue thing that he teaches. And so that would be the other one. Vanity metric. I'm still perplexed.
You want me to tell you mine for Aspen?
Yeah, please.
How many employees we had?
Yeah.
I always used to be oh, how are you doing? Oh, great. We just got our 20th employee.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're doing great. We just got our 40th employee.
Yeah.
But we're not making any money. But I'm not going to tell you that.
No.
For sure, the biggest vanity metric for me was...
How many square foot our office space is?
Yeah,
no, we're in a tiny little box. We have a team of 5 full-time people. And honestly, I feel like we have 15. And I think, you know, being born with a $250K check, like that's not going to change. Like Tom, a head of product, is also head of customer success, right? You know, when you email, it's like it goes to Tom.
Yeah.
That was never in his job description. He's now put it on his LinkedIn, right? But like overnight, he became head of customer success, and
just stack those hats on.
And he's better than any customer success manager I've ever worked with in 9 years, where it's an important job. Like he is just so on the ball. Always trying to improve that process, made us go buy a tool that he needed. That's just like infinitely improved the customer experience. Yeah, I might be with you. Employee count, I don't care. If we hit the numbers we want to hit, I think the vanity metric's probably like our team's so small and we did it. That's something I'd probably be more proud of, is we did it with this small team. So I don't think that's changing anytime soon.
How about amount of money raised?
No.
Vanity, is that a vanity metric?
I think so. Yeah. I think, like 250K. But what we did with it, way more important. You know, we did kind of the 1.4 million pre. It's a good number. You can put it in a press release, whatnot. But it's like, what did you do with it? Where did you put it? I'm more proud of the fact that we still have, you know, pretty much half of that still sitting in the bank, and we're going to go get more. That's way more fulfilling and rewarding. Yeah, we'll do a seed that makes sense. Like we already have the model built out for the next round based on like the lowest possible number. Like how much can we go and do with the smallest amount? That just means we're giving away less of the company, right? And we're being more efficient, and people are doing more than they should. Yeah. And again, like it's not 2020 anymore. A lot of those silly round numbers don't exist today, and I've got people that I know personally that did raise at those silly numbers. It's not good, right? It's not good for them. They're not in a great spot. They have unrealistic targets they have to go and hit now because they took that money at a cheap time. And so while we have done, you know, almost 3 raises in probably the worst year and a half of venture in the last decade, I think it's taught us like disciplines that we wouldn't have had if we just got cheap money at silly numbers. So I'm grateful for it. Like we mentioned, if we can do it now and get through to the other side, we're going to be all the better for it. So yeah, I would put that stuff aside. That's an ego thing, I think.
I think the mistake that people make with raising is they throw money at learning. You can't buy learning. Like You hire the person to do it, and they're going to go do it, but they're not going to do it as good as you, and you're not going to know how to do it as the founder. And in the early stages, when you're less than like 12 people or under $1 million in ARR, like, have to know how to do every single role. Maybe not code, maybe not all the complexities on the finance side, but like you have to understand the operations and the marketing and the product and the sales. Like, you can't outsource that. You can't just throw money at those.
No, that's what I said. I was like, the only thing that I will not do at this company is code, right? Like, not worth my time to go to try and figure out how to do it. A lot of people better. But like when we started this, I probably couldn't have named you 3 VCs, like Sequoia Excel, maybe because of Qualtrics, but I didn't know that world at all. Like, it was all brand new. I didn't know how to read balance sheets. That was just not part of what I'd done, right? I was a salesperson for 9 years. Now I run all the VC calls on my own, and it's like, you had to learn it. So I think that's just got to be the mindset. Again, have I done it before? No. Do we figure it out? Yes. We're not just going to go hire someone to do customer success because none of us have done it. Someone pick that up, learn it, go do it. And again, we're all in customer success. Like, you just email me, I get stuff done. That's fine. That's how it should be. And so, yeah, just the hats are always on the floor. Pick them up, put them on. Don't ask questions. Figure it out. I think that's going to be our mentality for a long time.
You talked about discipline. Last question, and I feel like you've been running the company pretty lean. Is that for everybody that's starting a company?
Is that for everybody? In this day and age, right now, yeah, I think so. And as well, like, if you're not on the AI bandwagon and like figuring out how to use it to be more efficient, you're already behind the 8 ball. We just look at everything like, again, every dollar is just like so crucial. We don't spend it if we don't have to. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think the next like proper $1 billion company is going to be a 5-person team. Like, legitimately. And I don't think there's an excuse not to. Again, depends what the offering is and how it works, but I think someone will figure that out and go and do it and just completely break the mold. Like, we've seen, like, Elon Musk, psychopath, right? Like, absolutely mental, thinks completely different than everybody else, walks into Twitter, that just cuts everybody else. Like, product's going to break, it's going to be horrible. It's fine. It's better than it's ever been, right? And so I think, like, that triggered then in so many other people, like, do we need all these people to do this? And I don't think that's like a human improvement. That's a technology improvement. That's the technology's better, so you can, go and make these advancements without having to pay people to do it. So like, even for us, like, just it's like a Navy SEAL team, right? It's like, I only need a few guys and we're going to do a lot of damage. And that, I think, is just going to be our mindset. And even to that point, right, I'd rather be in the boat, and I've said this before, like, I'd rather have a team of pirates than the Navy, because I just figure, like, you guys can go and figure it out, just being scrappy, being ruthless, thinking differently. Like, give me those guys.
I like that.
You've been reading Play Bigger.
Yeah.
I love that book.
Indeed. Pirates over the Navy.
Thanks, Aaron. I learned so much.
Appreciate it.
You've been watching Hello Grow, the world's #1 growth podcast. I'm Cortland Brady.
I'm Carlos Souza. If you've watched this video so far, it means that you like the content that we're putting out and the people we're interviewing.
We're putting together a community of business leaders, entrepreneurs, and sales leaders. You liking, subscribing, and sharing this content helps us reach those that are going on that journey.
If you want to be a part of this community, please subscribe, smash that like button, and turn on those notifications.